There's a moment, and you know it, when silence doesn't feel peaceful anymore. It feels heavy. It feels like swallowing your own voice just to keep someone else comfortable. You smile, nod, let things slide, but deep down, something inside you starts whispering, this isn't right. And that whisper, it's not weakness. It's your self-respect trying to wake you up, because standing up for yourself isn't about being loud, it's about being clear. It's not about fighting, it's about finally refusing to fight yourself just to make others happy. You don't need to prove your worth in every conversation. You don't need to match someone's tone just to be heard. Confidence isn't found in the noise. It's found in the pause before you respond. That pause, that breath, that's where your power lies. When someone crosses the line, you don't need to explode. You don't need to win the moment. You just need to stay centered. A calm, no. A steady, that's not okay. A quiet, I'm done talking about this. Those words, said with peace, not anger, carry more power than shouting ever will. Because here's the truth most people miss. When you stop defending your worth, you start defining it. Every time you let disrespect slide, you teach people that your boundaries are optional. But every time you speak with quiet conviction, you teach them something else, that your self-respect is not up for negotiation. You don't need to become cold. You don't need to become hard. You just need to become clear. Clarity is confidence. Confidence isn't volume, it's control. It's being able to speak without shaking because you know what you stand for. And yes, it'll feel uncomfortable at first. Your voice might shake, your hands might tremble. You'll question if you're being too much. But say it anyway. Because every time you speak up, even with fear in your chest, you're training your mind to trust your voice again. You're rebuilding what silence took away, your power. Don't confuse kindness with weakness. Don't confuse humility with silence. And don't confuse peace with people pleasing. Peace doesn't mean letting things go. Peace means letting yourself be heard without guilt. Respect doesn't start when others see your worth. It starts when you do. Because before anyone values your presence, you have to believe that your presence has value. The mistake most people make is waiting for someone else's validation before they feel enough. They wait for acknowledgement, appreciation, or applause before they see themselves as worthy. But here's the truth, no one can respect what you don't. People treat you based on the standard you silently set for yourself. When you carry yourself like someone who deserves respect, people notice. When you speak like your thoughts matter, people listen. But when you shrink your second-guess every word, when you downplay your worth just to make others feel comfortable, you teach them that it's okay to overlook you. Respect isn't something you demand. It's something you demonstrate. It's not about convincing people to treat you better. It's about refusing to participate when they don't. The moment you realize that your boundaries aren't walls but standards, everything changes. Because the way you carry yourself sends a message long before your words ever do. You teach people how to treat you by what you tolerate, and every time you let something slide that disrespects your peace, you quietly lower your worth in your own eyes. Self-respect begins in the moments no one sees. When you say no even when it would have been easier to say yes, when you walk away from what doesn't serve you, when you choose silence instead of arguing for your value. People often think confidence means being the loudest in the room, but real confidence is knowing you don't have to prove yourself to anyone. You don't have to over-explain. You don't have to beg for understanding. You don't need everyone to like you. The right ones will respect you, and the wrong ones will reveal themselves through how they respond to your boundaries. That's why self-respect is not arrogance. It's awareness. It's the understanding that your peace, your energy, your time, and your emotions are currency, and not everyone deserves access to them. When you start viewing your energy that way, you stop spending it on the wrong people. It's easy to tell others to respect themselves, but living it takes discipline. It means not replying to every message just because you feel guilty ignoring it. It means walking away from conversations that drain you instead of trying to fix them. It means trusting that silence can say more than defending yourself ever could. It means realizing that you don't owe anyone constant access to you just because they demand it. Respecting yourself means not negotiating your boundaries just to be liked. You can be kind and still say no. You can be humble and still expect decency. You can be compassionate without being a doormat. Respect grows when you stop chasing what disrespects you. When you start choosing peace over approval, clarity over confusion, and self-worth over self-doubt, you naturally attract people who do the same. It's not about pushing people away. It's about no longer abandoning yourself to keep them close. Every time you lower your standards, you teach others that you're okay being treated that way. But every time you choose yourself, you remind them and yourself that you are not desperate, you are deliberate. And sometimes the hardest part of self-respect is walking away from situations where you're still deeply invested emotionally. But staying where your worth isn't seen won't make them value you. It'll only make you forget why you should value yourself. That's why learning to let go is an act of self-respect, not weakness. You can love people and still decide they're not healthy for your peace. You can forgive them and still not let them back in. You can care deeply and still walk away quietly when you realize the price of staying is your self-worth. The truth is, people will always test your boundaries. Not because they want to hurt you, but because they want to see if you really believe in them. That's where self-respect shows up the loudest, in your consistency. When your words and actions match. When your peace speaks louder than your anger. When you stop trying to explain why you deserve better and start simply acting like you do. Respect begins the moment you decide that you don't need permission to be enough. And once you start treating yourself with that level of respect, something powerful happens. Your energy changes. You stop chasing and start attracting. You stop doubting and start deciding. You stop settling and start growing. Because respect doesn't start with them. It starts with you. Every time you choose your peace over pressure, your values over validation, and your self-worth over their opinion. That's the kind of respect that doesn't fade when people leave, because it's rooted in the one person who will never leave, you. Silence can be strength, but not when it costs your self-respect. There's a fine line between choosing peace and choosing to be silenced, and too many people confuse the two. Staying calm doesn't mean staying quiet when something needs to be said. Silence is powerful only when it's intentional, when it comes from confidence, not fear. But when your silence becomes the place where your dignity goes to die, it's no longer peace, it's surrender. There are moments when holding your tongue protects your energy, but there are also moments when speaking up protects your worth. Knowing the difference is where real emotional maturity lies. People often say, just let it go. But letting go doesn't mean letting yourself be walked over. When someone crosses a line, disrespects you, or constantly invalidates your feelings, and you stay silent just to avoid discomfort, what you're really doing is teaching them how to treat you. Every time you stay quiet to keep the peace, you sacrifice a small piece of it inside yourself. The problem with silence born from fear is that it doesn't create peace, it creates resentment. You start to replay what you should have said. You start to lose the courage to speak your truth because every unspoken moment builds a wall between who you are and who you pretend to be. There's a type of strength in silence. The kind that comes from patience, from choosing not to react to nonsense, from letting your growth make the noise. But that same silence becomes weakness when it hides your truth. Sometimes the most respectful thing you can do for yourself is to use your voice. Not to attack, not to argue, but to make it clear. This is where I stand. Your voice is not a weapon, it's a boundary. And boundaries aren't built in silence, they're built through honesty. Speaking up doesn't make you rude, defensive, or dramatic. It makes you real. And people who benefit from your silence will always label your truth as disrespect. Don't let that confuse you. You don't have to shout to be heard. You don't even have to raise your voice. But you do have to use it, because silence in the face of disrespect doesn't make you graceful. It makes you invisible. There's a quiet confidence in calmly saying, "That's not okay," and meaning it. There's power in saying, "I won't tolerate that," without needing to justify it. The more you choose your silence over your self-respect, the more others assume you're okay with being disrespected. And once people believe that, they stop listening altogether. Silence can protect your peace only when it's backed by strength, not fear. We've all been in conversations where we felt the tension rise, the urge to just let it pass, to not make it worse, to stay mature. But maturity isn't silence in the face of disrespect. It's speaking truth with calm conviction. It's saying, "I deserve to be treated better," without anger. It's choosing to clarify, not confront. And that takes more courage than staying quiet ever will. Silence can seem easier in the moment, but it's expensive in the long run. It costs confidence. It costs authenticity. And it costs the belief that your voice matters, which it absolutely does. Sometimes people mistake your silence for agreement. They think your lack of reaction means they've won. But silence isn't always peace. Sometimes it's the echo of self-doubt. You start to question if speaking up even matters, if it'll change anything. But here's the truth. Speaking up isn't about changing them. It's about not losing yourself. It's about standing up, not for approval, but for alignment with your own values. When you speak your truth calmly and clearly, even if they don't hear you, you hear you. And that's what keeps your self-respect alive. Think of silence like a tool. It's powerful only when used with purpose. If you're staying quiet to control the situation, to hold your peace, or to rise above drama, that's strength. But if you're staying quiet because you're afraid of judgment, conflict, or rejection, that's suppression. And the more you suppress, the more your confidence slips away. Strength doesn't come from swallowing your truth, it comes from standing in it. Every time you choose to speak up, even with shaking hands and a trembling voice, you build a little more courage. You tell yourself, I matter enough to say something. And that's where real confidence grows. The goal isn't to argue or to prove others wrong, it's to stay true to what's right for you. Because silence that costs your self-respect is too high a price to pay for temporary peace. There's a peace that comes from avoidance, and then there's a peace that comes from alignment. Choose the second one. Your silence should serve your growth, not your fear. Use it when it protects your energy, but break it when it protects your worth. Because peace without self-respect isn't peace. It's permission for others to keep crossing your boundaries. Speak when your voice matters most, not to control the noise around you, but to remind yourself of the strength within you. Silence can be power, but only when it honors your truth, not when it hides it. Confidence isn't aggression, it's calm clarity under pressure. It's the ability to stay grounded when everything around you is trying to pull you into chaos. Real confidence doesn't need to dominate the room, it steadies it. It doesn't need to shout over others, it speaks with composure that demands attention. Aggression is loud because it's trying to convince. Confidence is calm because it already knows. The difference between the two is control. One reacts, the other responds. When you understand that being confident isn't about overpowering others but about staying true to yourself, no matter what, you stop fighting for validation and start communicating with intention. Many people mistake aggression for strength because it looks bold and commanding. But the truth is, aggression is often insecurity dressed up as power. It's the need to win every argument, to have the last word, to prove something. Confidence, on the other hand, doesn't need proof. It's not about being right, it's about being real. It's knowing that you can stand your ground without crossing the line. You can disagree without disrespect. You can be firm without being forceful. Confidence allows you to stay centered in who you are, calm, composed, and unshaken, even when someone tries to test you. Think about the moments that test your patience. Someone interrupts you, mocks your opinion, or challenges your boundaries. Aggression wants to snap back, to match their energy, to show strength through reaction. But confidence, it takes a breath. It pauses, it looks them in the eye and answers with control. Because true power isn't found in how loud your voice gets, it's found in how steady it remains. The calm person in a heated conversation isn't weak, they're the one actually in charge. When you can hold your peace under pressure, you've already won more than any argument could ever give you. Confidence is not a performance. You don't have to pretend to be fearless, you just have to act with clarity. People often confuse confidence with arrogance, but they couldn't be more different. Arrogance pushes others down to feel taller. Confidence lifts itself up by standing in truth. Arrogance demands attention, confidence earns it through presence. When you're confident, you don't need to make anyone feel small to feel secure. You simply communicate with a quiet authority that comes from self-trust. You know your value, and that's enough. Calm clarity doesn't mean you're emotionless. It means you've learned not to let your emotions control the situation. You can feel angry without becoming anger. You can feel hurt without becoming defensive. You can feel misunderstood and still choose grace. Confidence gives you the space between reaction and response, that small moment where you decide how to carry yourself. That's where power lies. Because when you stay calm under pressure, you shift the entire dynamic of the conversation. The one who controls their emotions controls the outcome. It's not easy to remain composed when someone disrespects you or challenges you unfairly. But confidence gives you the strength to rise above without losing yourself. It allows you to say, I'm not going to let this situation define my energy. It helps you focus on the bigger picture instead of getting trapped in the moment. You don't always need to prove your point. Sometimes, your restraint proves it for you. Silence can be stronger than any defense when it's rooted in certainty. People remember how you made them feel, not how loud you got. And calm confidence always leaves a lasting impression. The key to confidence under pressure is clarity. Clarity about who you are and what you stand for. When you know your values, you don't need to react to every challenge. You start to see that not every comment deserves a reply, and not every argument deserves your energy. That's what separates emotional maturity from ego. Aggression says, I'll show you. Confidence says, I don't need to. The more secure you become, the less reactive you are. You realize that keeping your composure doesn't mean you're backing down. It means you're strong enough not to be dragged down. Confidence also means being comfortable with not having all the answers. You can admit when you're wrong without shame. You can say, "I don't know," without feeling small. Because confidence isn't about perfection, it's about authenticity. The calmness that comes from being secure in yourself allows you to connect, not compete. When you stop fighting for approval, you start focusing on growth. And that's what true clarity brings, direction without desperation. So when pressure rises and people expect you to crack, let your calmness surprise them. Let your tone carry more power than their volume. Let your clarity cut through the noise. Because aggression may intimidate for a moment, but confidence earns respect that lasts. When you stay composed under tension, you're showing strength that can't be shaken. Not because you're louder, but because you're wiser. Confidence isn't the fire that burns through arguments, it's the light that guides through them. And when you learn to stand in that calm clarity, no pressure can take away your peace or your power. You teach people how to treat you by how you respond, not how loud you speak. Every reaction you give sends a message, not just about what you think, but about what you will tolerate. You don't earn respect by raising your voice, you earn it by raising your standards. The tone you set in your responses shapes how others approach you in the future. If you respond with calm strength instead of emotional chaos, people quickly learn that your boundaries aren't open for negotiation. The way you handle disrespect, pressure, or misunderstanding silently trains others in how to engage with you. Loud words may grab attention, but controlled responses earn influence. It's easy to mistake volume for authority, but true authority doesn't shout. It simply doesn't need to. The one who remains composed when provoked holds more power than the one who loses control. Because calmness under pressure tells others, "You can't shake me." When people see that your peace isn't easily disturbed, they stop trying to disturb it. You start commanding respect not through intimidation, but through consistency. You teach them that if they want a conversation with you, they'll have to match your level of respect, not your level of emotion. Every time you react out of anger or frustration, you give away a bit of your power. You show that others can pull you into their chaos simply by pressing the right button. But when you respond with composure, you take that control back. You make it clear that your emotions belong to you, not to the situation. The calm person in the room always stands out because they project something rare, emotional discipline. It's not that they don't feel deeply, it's that they refuse to let feelings dictate their behavior. That kind of self-control teaches people more about your worth than any argument ever could. The truth is, people mirror the energy you give them. If you respond with calm confidence, they adjust. If you respond with frustration, they push harder. It's human nature to test boundaries until they're clearly defined. That's why how you respond matters more than what you say. You can deliver a firm no in a tone that doesn't need to yell. You can set boundaries without explaining or apologizing. You can end conversations that disrespect your peace without drama. These are all forms of silent strength, ways of teaching people that your respect is not optional and your time is not to be wasted. When you respond with dignity, even when others don't, you communicate something powerful. I'm in control of myself. That quiet confidence unsettles people who thrive on chaos because they can't manipulate what they can't provoke. Your restraint becomes your armor. You don't need to prove yourself through anger because self-respect has already proven enough. The more you master your reactions, the less others can control the narrative. They might talk louder, but you'll always be heard clearer because your tone carries the weight of self-respect, not desperation. Think about it. The people who command the most respect are rarely the loudest. They speak less, but their words hit harder because they're backed by self-awareness. They don't respond to every slight or insult because they know that silence can speak louder than defense. When you don't engage with disrespect, you teach others that it has no place in your presence. When you stop over-explaining your worth, people begin to recognize it on their own. Every calm response is a lesson in boundaries, a reminder that peace is not weakness, it's wisdom in action. It takes strength to pause before you respond. It takes maturity to choose clarity over chaos. But that's where real growth happens, in that small moment between stimulus and response. That's where you decide whether to let someone control your energy or to protect it. You can't always control how people treat you, but you can control what you allow. And every time you choose to respond instead of react, you redefine what following means. You start teaching people that respect is the only language you respond to. The louder you have to speak to be taken seriously, the less power you truly have. Because when respect is earned through tone instead of truth, it fades fast. But when it's earned through consistent, calm behavior, it becomes permanent. You don't need to match anyone's volume. You just need to maintain your value. The louder others get, the quieter you can become, not because you're intimidated, but because you're focused on protecting your peace. And that calm confidence changes the energy of every interaction. So every time someone tests your boundaries, remember this: you're teaching them how to treat you. Every time you respond with grace instead of anger, you're showing them the level of maturity required to engage with you. You don't have to demand respect when you embody it. You don't have to prove your power when your silence speaks it. The lesson you send through your composure lasts far longer than any argument ever could, because people forget what you say, but they remember how you made them feel, and when your calm response communicates strength, they'll never forget that. The next time your voice shakes, don't wait for it to stop. Speak anyway, because confidence isn't about being fearless. It's about standing tall while your fear still whispers. And when you do that, people stop talking at you and start listening to you.